Namaste friends. The Lunar New Year celebrated by many Indians started a few days back, and the Solar New Year that is celebrated by some Indians is going to start in a couple of days. So as I have done in the last few years, I want to give my annual predictions for nations as well as individuals. And before I do that, Happy New Year. Happy New Year Shubhakrit. And Shubhakrit means causing auspiciousness. And of course, the name doesn't decide the results. We have to look at the planetary positions, etc. So I will give those readings later, but at least name wise, this is an auspicious name. And just to give a perspective, based on the Vedic cosmology, Vedic timeline, in the current creation, 1,655,885,123 years have passed just in the current creation, and there have been many such creations. And since the Mahabharata war happened, this is year 5088, and in Kali Yuga this is year 5123. Now, just to set the agenda, these are the topics that I am going to cover today. In tradition, we have this concept of annual planetary cabinet, Navanayakas, 9 leaders, as well as the Upanayakas, sub-leaders, who are responsible for various things in the world during a year. So I will give the standard results from Shastras, and I will also talk about eclipses and some key transits when you have to be careful, and also you can do some sadhana around those dates. So I will mention those. And there are some standard numbers given for 12 moon signs like Aadaya, Vyaya, Rajapoojya, Avamaana. So I will go through those numbers. And also there are some standard results given for Nakshatras, 27 and 28 Nakshatras. So I will give those. And after that I will talk about the general trends during the year and results for a few selected nations, a few top level results, what I expect over the year. And as things evolve during the year, I may make more videos focusing on specific nations, but this is just a top line expectation for various nations. And the main thing is, I will go through various moon signs and identify major transits, good and bad, and suggest some remedies that can accentuate the good and suppress the bad. So I will do that per moon sign. Okay, so this is what I'm going to do today in this video. First, the planetary cabinet. The Raja or the king for this year is Saturn, Shani. Actually, for the Western Hemisphere, it is Venus, Shukra. So the result given for Saturn, especially for the Eastern Hemisphere, is because the king is a malefic planet, the rulers will be in trouble, and also rulers will not have good judgment. They will be indecisive, and they will also be selfish. And the minister, Mantri for this year is Jupiter, which means the advisors and counselors who are guiding the rulers. They will be very wise, very thoughtful, very calculated, etc. They will exercise good judgment. The army chief or Senadhipati for this year is Buddha, which means the people who are in charge of armies in the world, they will be very calculative and also not hasty. They will calculate everything carefully and then take decisions. So that is a good sign in a year of wars. And the Sasyadhipati, or the planet responsible for agriculture, is Surya, who is a malefic planet. And the planet for grains, Dhanyadhipati, is Shukra. So overall, because there is mixed rulership here, the agriculture and grains will be, things will be mixed for them, for agriculture. And the Arghadpati, who is responsible for prices, is Buddha. So Buddha is a trader planet, a Vaishya planet. So the trading class will engage in some price gouging, and they will look at their profits. So there can be increasing inflation during the year. And the Varshadhipati or Meghadhipati, or the planet responsible for rains, is Buddha. So during this year, rains will be mixed. There will be places where there will be drought and places where there is heavy rain. there will be floods. So it is a mixed year for rains and clouds, and for various commodities. For Rasadipati, it is Angaraka, Mars. Nirasadipati, the dry ones, non-dry is Mars, and dry commodities is Saturn. So both of them are negative planets. So commodities will be in short supply. There will be shortage of some commodities, and again that goes in conjunction with this. So there will be price gouging, and there will be inflation, heavy inflation during the year. And a few other, these are the main Navanayakas, the 9 main leaders, and there are a few other sub leaders that are mentioned in the tradition. I'll go through them. The Purohita or priest for this year is Sun, Surya. So priest will be very authoritative during this year. Examiner is Shani. So Parikshaka is Shani. So those who set the examination papers or set the question papers, etc., they will be either selfish or thoughtless, unwise. The Ganaka or accountant for the year is Chandra. So accountants will do a thorough job during this year. Local ruler or Gramadhipati is Guru. So even though rulers at the national level are selfish and not very thoughtful, the rulers at the local level will be very thoughtful and wise. And the astrologer for this year, the Jyotisha, is Buddha. So astrologers will be very logical, intelligent, but also indecisive. They will, instead of giving clear readings, they'll say either this or this or this. I'll try not to be like that in this video. The cowherd, the Pashupalaka for this year is Balrama. So very good year for animals, domestic animals. For vehicles and luxury vehicles, it is Guru and Surya. Traditionally, we say Ashwadhipati and Gajadhipati, horses and elephants, but basically vehicles and luxury vehicles. So the shortage we experience for vehicles in some parts of the world this year will come under control. So vehicles will be in good supply, but luxury vehicles will still be in shortage. Some of the high-end electronics needed for those may still be in short supply. For various animals, for Pashus, Pashunam Adhipati is Buddha. So it is a mixed year for animals. We talked about domestic animals here, and this is general animals. For gods, Devadhipati is Surya. So gods will give results with lot of effort. Effort is required to propitiate gods during this year. Both Naranam Adhipati and Strinam Adhipati, for men and women, it is Buddha. So men and women will be very intelligent, very indecisive, and there will be some confusion for human beings in general. Local leader, this is, previously we talked about Gramadhipati, this is Grama Nayaka. So local level grassroots leader will be selfish and self-centered during this year and not very wise. Vastradhipati is Kuja, Mars. So again, clothes will be in short supply. Prices of clothes can also increase during this year. Ratnadhipati is Guru. So gems will be in good supply during this year, and gems will do well. And for trees, Vrikshadhipati is Shukra. So this is a good year for environmental agenda. So some good environmental legislations may be passed in some important countries in the world during this year. Good for environment. For business, for Vyapara, Vanijja and Vyapara, it is Buddha. So business will be mixed during the year, and also there will be businessmen will be very clever in doing business. Sarvadeshojyogapati, or the planet responsible for employment, is Guru. So during this year, employment will increase. So any unemployment that increased during the last few years of pandemic, it may come under control. More people who left the workforce may come back to the workforce during this year. So this is a good year for generating new employment. Eclipses. There are a couple of total lunar eclipses during this year. There is one on 2022 May 15 from 9:32 p.m. to 2:50 a.m. Eastern Daylight Saving Time. This is the US East Coast time, and this is not visible in India. And lunar eclipses that are not visible in the place you live are not effective. So people in India don't have to follow it, but people in US can follow it, and people in other places can convert this time and see if it falls in the night time for them. And the nakshatra that is affected most by it is Visakha, and the Rasi is Vrischika. So if you are Vrischika Rasi, Scorpio moon sign, or Visakha nakshatra, be extra careful during that time. And any ladies who are pregnant around that time, it's a good idea not to go outside during the eclipse. And in general, for anybody, eclipses are a good time to engage in some spiritual sadhana. They are not good times for dharma, but they are good dharma and artha, but they are good times for kama and moksha. So, because sun and moon, Ravi and Chandra, they are the eyes of the universe. They are the eyes of the cosmic being, and they are responsible for maintaining some order and dharma in the world. So because sun and moon are being eclipsed, they are being eclipsed by Rahu and Ketu, it's not a good time for dharma. So that is why temples close during that time, etc. But Rahu and Ketu, they stand for kama and moksha. Rahu is for kama and Ketu is for moksha. So for doing sadhana to fulfill specific desires, or just to make spiritual progress, for those two kind of activities, eclipses are really, really favorable times. And some shastras say that any mantra japa that is done during an eclipse is 1,000 times more effective compared to normal time. So during this time, if it is visible in your area, you can do some spiritual sadhana. You can do japa, you can do homa, etc. And there is another total lunar eclipse, Sampurna Chandra Grahanam, on 2022 November 8th from 3:02 a.m. till 8:56 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. In again US East Coast time, you can convert it to other time zones. And in India, it is 1:32 to 7:26 p.m. So they will catch the tail end of the eclipse in India. It comes after sunset. So as sun sets and moon rises, they will see moon eclipsed. So it is effective there also. And specifically Bharani Nakshatra people and Mesha Rasi people have to be careful with this eclipse. Now, solar eclipses. The thing with solar eclipses is they are effective even if they are not visible in the area you live in. So the basic idea is Lagna, moon and sun, they stand for the tripod of life, body, mind and soul. And our minds resonate with minds that are around us. If we are in the company of somebody really elevated, we may feel calm and peaceful. If we are in the company of somebody who is really irritated and in a really bad mood, even if we don't realize why it is happening, it may rub on our mind and we may feel irritable. So like that, there is some resonance between minds, but basically there is a distance up to which it works, because minds don't resonate beyond a certain distance. Whereas the soul, we are all connected to the cosmic soul. So soul has an infinite reach. So from that point of view, sun stands for soul, moon stands for mind. So solar eclipse is effective even if it is not visible where you live. So everybody can benefit from solar eclipses and do some sadhana during that time. There is a partial solar eclipse on 2022 April 30 from 2:45 p.m. to 6:37 p.m. Eastern Daylight Saving Time. This is the US East Coast time. In India, it will be the next day, May 1st, from 12:15 a.m. early morning till 4:07 a.m. early morning. And specifically, Bharani Nakshatra and Mesha Rasi people have to be careful with this eclipse. But everybody can do sadhana, even if you have a different Nakshatra or Rasi. And there is another partial solar eclipse on 2022 October 25 from 3:58 a.m. to 8:02 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. And in India, it is 2:28 p.m. to 6:32 p.m. And this specifically affects Swati Nakshatra people or in general Thula Rasi people. So those people have to be extra cautious. And again, don't get worried if your Nakshatra or Rasi is mentioned here. It doesn't mean something bad will happen to you. Astrology is not meant to suffocate you with fear. It is just to prepare you. In other words, if the probability of a bad event is 1 over million or 1 over 10 million, for people of certain nakshatras around certain times, it may be 1 over 10,000, 1 over 1 lakh. So it is basically more, but it's not really 1. So it's not guaranteed. So you should take it with a pinch of salt. So don't get worried, but because there is an increased chance, be extra careful. That's all. And specifically with eclipses, you can use that time to do japa or homa. You can download homa manuals from my website, vedicastrologer.org or easyhoma.org. You can go there and download manuals. There are manuals for homa to 32 different devatas. You can pick a devata that you are interested in, you feel attachment to, and do a homa. And there are very simple manuals that you can do in 5-10 minutes also. And of course you can do longer if you want. Now some key transits. Jupiter will be stationary. What we mean by stationary is, with respect to Earth, planets will be moving in one direction and then they may change direction, going backwards. Sun is always moving one way, but other planets can move that way, direct motion, and they can go backwards sometimes. So when they are making a transition between going direct and going backwards, there is a point in time when they are stationary. They are basically zero speed. They are not moving, and those times are very important. During those times, if those planets are at or aspecting or watching some key sensitive positions in your natal horoscope, in your own birth chart, they can trigger that position and give important events in life. So some people see that around stationary transit of Jupiter and Saturn, important events may happen in life. Not always, but when they are aspecting, when they are watching something important. So because you don't know, unless you are an astrologer and you know your chart, you can't judge whether this is important to you, but it's because this is an interesting transit, there's no harm in doing some extra sadhana during that time. So Jupiter is stationary on 2022 July 28 and again on 2022 November 23, and Saturn is stationary on 2022 June 4 and again on 2022 October 22. So you can be careful. And couple of more things. When planets are conjoined, they are exactly the same longitude. Their forces come together, and depending on the nature of those planets, especially if they are two malefics, etc., they can cause some important events, especially if they are near or watching an important sensitive position in your own birth chart. So again, you can take some precautions during that time and also do some sadhana during that time, some spiritual practices. Saturn and Mars will be conjoined on April 4th. Actually, it was a few days back. I actually made a video on this. And there will be a Mars-Rahu conjunction on 2022 August 1. And on May 13th, there will be a Sun-Rahu conjunction, and there will be a Sun-Ketu conjunction on November 5. So these are important transits. So around these dates you can be careful, and you can engage in some spiritual practices, extra spiritual practices. Now Pushkaras, every year there are Pushkaras for various rivers in India. So I will mention that. It is observed from April 13, and it is for Pranahita Nadi, Pranahita river. Some people also call it Pranita river. So either Pranita or Pranahita river, it flows through Maharashtra and Telangana, and if it is near you, you can go and take bath in that river during that time, during the next few days, a few days after following that date, and it can be beneficial. Now I'm going to give some numbers based on the moon signs as well as nakshatras, and a word of caution here. Readings based just on moon sign or moon star are not reliable. They aren't, logically speaking, they are not just 12 or 27 or 28 different fortunes in the world. There are infinite different fortunes, and we know from practice, from experience, that even twins who are born 2 or 3 minutes apart, they can have vastly different fortunes. Their Rasi is the same, their Nakshatra is the same, their Lagnam is the same, sometimes even the Navamsa Lagnam is the same, but they can have totally different fortunes. And I have many such examples. So you can't just go by these parameters. Of course, Jyotish has some finer parameters that were taught by rishis like Parasara and Bhrigu. So there are macro and micro aspects, and the macro aspects have a purpose, because you can't give readings. Using micro aspect, you have to look at an individual chart, and you can help only one person at a time, and that takes a lot of time. So macro aspects will give guidance for a larger populace. So they have a purpose, but you have to take it with a pinch of salt. Like I said earlier, if a particular kind of good or bad event is possible, has a probability of 1 over 10 million, for people of a particular nakshatra or Rashi during a particular time, the probability may not be 1 over 10 million, but maybe 1 over 10,000. So it may be much more likely, but still it's not guaranteed. So you have to take it with a pinch of salt. Use astrology to not to be suffocated with fear, but to be prepared and take calculated risk, and also at bad times be extra cautious. Now the numbers. I'll just read out these numbers. There are things called Aadayam, income, Vyayam, expense, Rajapoojyam, respect in the society, Avamaanam, insult in the society. So these numbers are given for various Rasis and Nakshatras. So I will mention those. For Aries or Mesha Rasi, 14, income is 14, expense is 14, respect is 3, insult is 6. For actually I don't have to read, you can see it yourself. So for Taurus or Vrishabha Rasi, Aries is Ashwini Bharani Kritika first padam. For Taurus or Vrishabha Rasi, for Kritika second, third and fourth padam, Rohini and Mrgasira first and second padam, these are the numbers. For Gemini or Mithuna Rasi, which is Mrgasira third and fourth padam, Atra and Punarvasu first, second and third padam, these are the numbers. For Karkataka Rasi or Cancer, which is Punarvasu fourth padam, Pushyami and Asresha, for them these are the numbers. For Leo or Simha Rasi, Magha, which is Magha Nakshatram, Purva Phalguni and Uttar Phalguni first padam, for them these are the numbers. For Virgo or Kanya Rasi, which is Uttar Phalguni second, third and fourth padam, Hasta and Chitra first and second padam, these are the numbers. For Libra or Thula Rasi, which is Chitra third and fourth padam, Swati and Visakha first, second and third padam, for them these are the numbers. For Scorpio or Vrischika Rasi, which is Visakha fourth padam, Anuradha and Jyeshtha, for them these are the numbers. For Sagittarius or Dhanu Rasi, which is Mola, Purvashada, Uttarashada first padam, these are the numbers. And for Capricorn or Makara Rasi, which is Uttarashada second, third and fourth padam, Shravanam, Dhanishta first and second padam, these are the numbers. For Aquarius or Kumbha Rasi, which is Dhanishta third and fourth padam, Satabhishak and Purvabhadra first, second and third padam, these are the numbers. And finally for Purvabhadra fourth padam, Uttarabhadra and Revati, Pisces or Main Rasi, these are the numbers. Again, take them with a pinch of salt. This is more entertainment than real. Now there are some numbers, there are things known as Kandaya phalas, I will mention those. For every star, there are 3 numbers given. So you can, the way most people use it is, they take their moon nakshatra, suppose it is Mrgasira, 111 are the numbers. But really the way it is supposed to be used is, you take the number in the first column from your Lagna nakshatra, you take the number in the second column from your moon nakshatra, you take the number in the third column from your sun nakshatra. Suppose my Lagna is in Bharani, I take this number. Suppose my moon is in Ardra, I take this number, second number. And suppose my sun is in Asresha, I take the third column number from this row. So that is how you are supposed to use. And basically Lagna, moon and sun, body, mind and soul. So the results are in those areas. And the basic guideline is, if it's an odd number, it is good, the year is good. If it is even number, year is average, moderate. If it is 0, which is a subcase of even, it is bad. So odd is good, even is moderate, 0 is bad. And if it is the first number from Lagna Nakshatra, then it is basically shows good or bad things for the physical existence. If it is the middle number from the Moon Nakshatra, it is for the mind. So if it is, suppose it is 0, it can be a lot of anxiety, tensions, worries during the year. And finally, if the third number is good or bad, it shows at the spiritual level, at the soul level. So if this is 0, for example, you may lose the will, you may feel really lost and not even have the willpower to fight. So it is worse. It is worse than the first 2 numbers. So these are the numbers. You can see these numbers: Aswini, Bharani, Kritika, Rohini, Mrgasira, Ardra, Purvasu, Pushyami, Asresha. These are the numbers. I will move to the next slide. And for the next 9 nakshatras, these are the numbers. And you may, if you don't know your Lagna and Surya Nakshatra, you can just use the Moon Nakshatra and take the numbers. Suppose your Moon is in Uttar Phalguni, you take these 3 numbers. But if you know those 3, you can go to the corresponding column based on that nakshatra, and you can go back and forth in this video and get to the right nakshatra of Lagna, Moon and Sun. So these are the numbers, Kandaya phalas, for the third set of nakshatras. Okay. Now there are some results given for 28 nakshatras where Abhijit is also included. A part of Uttarashadha and Shravanam is carved out as Abhijit. So there are 28 nakshatras in this scheme, and they are divided into 7 groups based on the Sarvatobhadra chakra, and there are results attributed for 4 nakshatra, each 4 nakshatras, and there are 7 like that. For Ashwini, Pushyami, Swati and Abhijit, the result is good health, Arogyam. For Bharani, Asresha, Vishakha and Shravanam, the results are financial gains, Arthalabham. For Kritika, Magha, Anuradha and Dhanishta, also known as Ravishta, the results are mental worries, Manastapam. For Rohini, Purphalguni, Jyeshtha and Sathvishak, results are respect in the society, Rajapoogyam. For Mrugasira, Uttaraphalguni, Mula and Purabhadra, the results are quarrels, fights with others. For Gharshana. For Ardra, Hasta, Purvashada, Uttarashada, the result is Abharanam or Bhushanam, jewelry. For Punarvasu, Chitra, Uttarashada and Revati, the results are health problems, ill health, Anarogyam. So these are the results for the 28 nakshatras. Now I will talk about some general trends during the year, and then I will go through a few major countries and try to give some insights into what I expect during the coming year from this April to next April. And as I mentioned in previous videos, and as people who followed me over the last couple of decades know, I've been saying for a couple of decades, we are in the middle of a period of major geopolitical transformation. And 2020 till 2036 is a period of terrible destruction and a possible world war and a likely world war. And the key year in the war is 2030. There may be a build-up over the next decade, but the real peak is at the end of 2030. When you have a Shaniketu, Guru Rahu conjunction and aspect on Vrishabha and Vrischika. And I expect that NATO and Quad, and actually I didn't mention, and Israel, NATO, Quad and Israel will be on one side of this major war, and Russia, China, Iran and North Korea nexus will be on the other side. And I expect that Russia-China alliance will grow stronger during this year. So for this war and the alliances in this war, the seeds will be seen in this year. Russia-China alliance will really grow strong, and I expect that we will see the start of the fall of petrodollar during this year. There will be seeds for the fall of dollar as a common currency, as a reserve currency for the world. And also I expect, because Ketu will be in Libra, which is the sign of markets during this year, cryptocurrencies, I expect them to rise during the next year and a half or so. But of course, there are a lot of different options, so I don't really know which one. But in general, this is a good year for cryptocurrencies. And because Guru will be in own sign for the next year and own or friendly sign for the next 2 years, gold will do really well over the next couple of years. It will reach good peaks over the coming year. And oil, historically, when Saturn is in own sign, he's in Makara right now, and he will be in Kumbham from next year for a year and a half. So for the next 3 years or so, oil will continue to do well. These are good years for oil also. And one thing I expect during this year, unfortunately, is there will be increased natural disasters. We've been seeing those for a few years now, and it won't relent. Nature will not relent. The natural disasters that we see, they will keep increasing in intensity in the coming years, and particularly this year also. This is not a good year for lack of natural disasters. This is a bad year for natural disasters. And COVID-19, this has consumed the attention of so many people over the last couple of years. And as I said in a previous video, a few months back, I don't expect any more major waves in US and India. The wave I predicted in US and India in the December-January time frame, it didn't turn out to be a major wave, but that wave which I predicted last April, that's really the last major wave. So more waves are possible elsewhere. I haven't looked at all countries. So in other countries, more waves are possible till June, July, but I don't expect them to be as terrible as in the past. And especially the case count waves in terms of case counts will be more and more decoupled from the waves in terms of hospitalization and death counts. So that is something that we will see over the few months, and I really expect that this pandemic will enter an endemic stage from June, July. It will be more like flu and cold, etc., rather than a pandemic. And I think that transition will happen in the June, July time frame, and health organizations across the world and in various countries will change their approach from the second half of 2022. Right now, many countries are very sensitive to increasing case counts, and their policies are based on that. So some of the policies will be fine-tuned from the second half of this year. So I really think that this will soon be behind us. We are just a few more months from entering the endemic stage. And as far as USA is concerned, as I mentioned in some previous videos, US of today is akin to United Kingdom of 1940s, a superpower that controlled the world undisputedly, but slowly falling. So a superpower in slow fall is the role played by US right now in the world, and I expect that US power will continue to come under challenges during this year, so that the US status will slowly dwindle. And internally, I expect that there will be continued political turbulence, especially in the second half of 2022. Second half of this year, this is an election year, by-election year in US. There will be elections for Senate and House. I expect a lot of political turbulence during this year. Things will not be smooth, and the acrimony between the two sides, between the conservatives and the liberals or the progressives, will be very strong during this year. And social issues will charge up both the sides equally. On one side, on the conservative side, all the concepts like woke and some knee-jerk idealism coming from the progressives and liberals will really rile up the right wing of the right wing and ultra right wing. And at the same time, all these anti-abortion laws being passed in various states controlled by the Republicans, they will really rile up the Democrats. Typically, we see one side being riled up and the other side taking it easy in the by-elections, and also typically the party that is in power loses in the by-elections 2 years after presidential election. That is what we typically see, but this year may be different. I expect that this midterm election will be very strange in November 2022. There will not be clear winner in terms of Republicans or Democrats. Unlike in the previous such midterm elections, there will be no clear winner. Both the parties will charge up their base, both the bases will show up, and it will be kind of stalemate between the two sides. And I expect Donald Trump, the previous Republican president, will still matter in his party in this election cycle. He will still hold some cards, and who he endorses, etc., will still matter, especially in the primaries. But at the same time, even though politically and electorally he will still matter and he will still have some power that he will assert, the legal news, I expect it to tighten over the next 12 months. So slowly things are moving. The wheels of law are very slow, but I expect that things will tighten. And one thing I am reasonably confident is the economy, it will experience some ups and downs because of the geopolitical shocks. First we had the Ukraine war, and there may be something more coming this year. I will talk about it in a few slides. So there will be geopolitical challenges during the year, but I think economy will absorb those shocks and economy will be okay. It will not be great, but it will be okay during the year. But still, from a long-term perspective, I'm not bullish on the economy, world economy, especially US economy. From a long-term perspective, there will be some mess that we are going to see in a few years. So basically, be careful with what you invest in. But of course, things like some certain commodities, gold, oil, defense, those stocks will continue to do well. So you can always make money in stock market if you research well. So there will be some areas that will do well, but overall economy, it will be okay during this year, but it is due for a major downfall in a few years. So if you are playing for the long term, be very careful. And India finds itself in a strange geopolitical equation with US, China and Russia. Russia is a long-term friend, and most of India's arms come from Russia, and Russia gave so much support internationally to India. So there is a lot of gratitude, but at the same time, this year we'll see Russia and China getting more close. I mean, Russia and China have been close, but this year we'll see them really coming close. And China is an adversary of India. India doesn't have a really friendly relation with China. They are geopolitical adversaries, and there have been some military entanglements between them. There have been some land disputes between them. So the best friend and the adversary get together. And US is anti-China, and US will see India as an important cog in the wheel, in the anti-China wheel. See India as a force that can stabilize Asia. So US will be moving more towards India, but at the same time, there's a lot of tension between US and India. And also right now, India has a right-wing government, US has a left-wing government. So there are some tensions as a result. So it'll be very interesting for India, but I expect that the Modi government will navigate this very well. They will, in the long run. In the short term, India is in the Russia camp, but by 2030, I expect India to move in the US direction. I mentioned earlier there'll be a NATO Quad Israel alliance, and for those who don't know Quad is an alliance between United States, India, Australia and Japan. These four countries form an alliance called Quad. Though the focus has been commerce, etc., it will shift more towards military cooperation also in coming years, and I expect that US will become closer to India, but you can't cut off what you have and completely move in one direction. So India has to navigate this transition very carefully, and I expect that Sri Narendra Modi ji and Ajit Doval ji will handle it well. And BJP will focus on some important legislative agenda this year. After the electoral success earlier this year, they will be bold in taking up some legislative agenda, some strong legislative agenda. And I think that some foreign powers will be partially successful in causing social unrest in India. There will be attempts to cause social unrest in India, like we see in some of India's neighbors right now. Because of the pandemic, there are some hits to the economy, and there is inflation everywhere in the world. So using those as the fuel, try to create unrest, social unrest, and some demonstrations, etc. But I expect that Modi government will withstand those well. They will handle those well. And economy anyway will be better than neighbors and better than much of the world. So I think Indian economy will do, again, like US, Indian economy will be okay during this year. And unfortunately, I expect a major turmoil in West Bengal and Kashmir. So especially these two states, this unrest may become worse and there may be a major turmoil. And in South India, I expect KCR, Sri Kalvakontla Chandrasekhar Rao, to remain strong in Telangana, but I think he will be a bit distracted in terms of his agenda. He will focus more on the national scene and 2024 elections and having a third front, etc. It won't be really fruitful in the end, but he will think it is fruitful, so he will put a lot of energy into it. So he is distracted, but unfortunately or fortunately, even with distractions, he will remain strong. BJP will not be able to weaken him in Telangana. And in AP and Tamil Nadu, I expect a lot of misgovernance during this year. It's not a good year for them. And BJP will do very well in the December elections. I said last year, a year and a half back, that from October 2021 October 2020 till October 2021 was bad for Sri Narendra Modi and Amit Shah. But the year from 2021 October till 2022 October are the next year also. The couple of 2-3 years coming after that are really, really good for them. The only exception was 2021, the year that ended in 2021 October. So they have good time, BJP has good time. So BJP will, just like the previous elections in March, they will do very well in December elections. I expect them to win a few important states that are in contention during those elections. At the same time, I expect the Aam Aadmi Party also to do well in unexpected places. I mentioned in a Arvind Kejriwal video a couple of years back, or a year and a half back, that he has a good time till mid 2023. So his party won Punjab. I don't expect them to win any state in December, but I expect them to have a good showing. Maybe become the main opposition party in a state or two. So Aam Aadmi Party will continue to rise, but BJP will win this election. As far as China is concerned, China will be bold. China will make some bold and aggressive moves this year to secure number one position in future. In terms of my comparison, I said that US is like UK of 1940s. Similarly, China and Russia are like Germany and Italy, or Germany and Japan of 1940s. So countries that are strong and they want to become number one and they challenge the previous number one. So China will be very bold and aggressive. I will not be surprised if they poke US and NATO in the eye in mid 2022. And unfortunately, I expect an aggression in South China Sea, most likely in the July-August time frame. The current time frame, the early April first half or April first 3 weeks is also conducive, but more likely period is July end and early August. That is a more conducive period. So there can be something in the Taiwan Strait during that time, some aggression that puts US in a real bind. And as a result of the one more thing, China has faulted US for what is happening in Ukraine, but did not give full-throated support to Russia. But I expect that the alliance, economic and military alliance between China and Russia will grow during the middle of this year and also the second half of this year. And I expect that the economy will take a hit, but it will be a conscious and calculated risk China will take. So I expect some hit to Chinese economy during this year. Russia will remain aggressive in Eurasia, in Europe and Asia. Russia will remain aggressive over the coming years, and particularly this year. And right now, because of all the sanctions, heavy sanctions that the West imposed, the economy is in shambles right now. The ruble is really, the value of ruble has gone down. Most of the banks can't deal with Western world, rest of the world. But I do expect that the economy will bounce back from May. And the shock will really be very short term. I think Russia will move their economy more in the Chinese direction. And also some of the Western powers will relent with the sanctions. So I expect that Russian economy will recover from May onwards. And as far as the Ukraine war is concerned, I said in a previous video that till April 8 I don't see any possibility of peace. But from after April 8, some traction in peace talks is possible. So right now there is partial peace in some parts of Ukraine because Russia has withdrawn troops from the western Ukraine, but the eastern and southern Ukraine are seeing more attacks, and they may see more attacks. But at the same time, I expect that some peace talks with some kind of formalization of a division of Ukraine may happen in the rest of April second half. But a peace deal, as I said in a previous video, a peace deal is possible. A concrete deal is possible in mid-May. So that is the period I'm looking at. So most likely what is going to happen is Russia will really focus on the on the eastern Ukraine, and at some stage Ukraine may try to come to terms with it and have a peace deal. And West may not be interested in it. West may want to see Ukraine become another Afghanistan, where Russia has a costly war over a long period. But it is possible that Ukraine goes for peace most likely period is mid-May. And as far as India's neighbors are concerned, in Pakistan, I don't see any economic and political stability about the next year. It is a really unstable period, both financially, economically, as well as politically in Pakistan. There will be a lot of political intrigue in the coming year, and lot of mass uprisings, etc. But I don't expect any war with India this year. And in Sri Lanka, government is likely to survive. In Pakistan, there is political instability and also government may not survive. But in Sri Lanka, I do expect the government will likely survive. The government of Sri Mahinda Rajapaksha and Gotabaya Rajapaksha is likely to survive all the mass protests that we are seeing in the streets right now. And I expect that the economy will be better from July. And the foreign bailout should help a lot. So I expect that things will stabilize from June, July onwards, especially from July. But I do expect the government to survive. And other neighbors of India, Nepal, I see unfortunately more instability during this year for Nepal. It's not a good year for Nepal. And I see a danger to current government. I don't see a danger in Sri Lanka. I do see a danger in Nepal and Pakistan during the year. So there is some danger in Nepal. And in Bangladesh, I expect a major natural disaster during this year. So it's bad from that perspective. And I expect increased political unrest, kind of like what we are seeing in Sri Lanka right now. It is possible to happen in Bangladesh during the coming year. And Bhutan is a relatively stable neighbor in India's vicinity. But unfortunately, a major natural disaster is possible in Bhutan also in the coming year. And on other nations, in UK, France and Germany, I expect them to play an important role in with a changing world order. Right now, Russia's war in Ukraine is one thing, but I expect that China will start some aggressive moves in the South China Sea, in the Taiwan Strait later this year. And then the European countries have a good relation with China, and they may play an intermediary role basically between US and China. So I expect that UK, France and Germany in particular will play an important role in a changing world order, especially in the middle of this year. And Macron, I will make a video on the French election later. After I will look for Macron's chart and make a prediction based on that. But just based on, right now I don't have the charts of the two main contender or other contenders, but based on France's chart of France, the mundane chart, I don't expect a major change in direction for France. So I expect that Macron is likely to be re-elected in a close election. But I will make a more confident prediction once we know who the two candidates are, and I will try to find their charts. If the charts are available, then I can make a more confident prediction. But my somewhat confident prediction is that Macron will be re-elected with a narrow margin. And these economies, European economies, I expect them to withhold the geopolitical shocks as well during the coming year. And Canada and Israel for them, this is a year of lot of political turbulence and some sort of political realignment. I'm not sure exactly what kind of realignment, but there'll be some changes in who's with who's in alliance with who, etc. So that is likely in Canada and Israel during the coming year. And Iran will see a lot of trouble from the Western pressure as well as internal unrest. They will combine to create a lot of turmoil in Iran. So I expect this to be a year of turmoil for Iran. And unfortunately, I don't expect any new nuclear deal with Iran. So Iran will languish. Now, as I said, I will go through various moon signs, 12 moon signs, and I will identify particularly good and particularly bad transits, especially of the slow moving planets, Saturn, Jupiter, Rahu and Ketu. And I will suggest some prayers that you can do, some remedies, that some specific devatas you can worship. And before I start that, I want to basically throw light on a few basic parameters, few basic things there. I will suggest specific devatas based on your chart. Suppose Shani is giving problems, so worship so and so devata like that. But a devata one can feel some attachment to will be more effective. So if I say worship Shiva and you are not really into Shiva, suppose you are a Vaishnava, a pure Vaishnava, and you really like worshipping Vishnu only, then you don't have to listen to what I am going to say in the next few slides. You can still worship Shiva, and you can find a form that has similar energy. So each devata, for example, Vishnu has different forms, right? Vishnu has Narsimha Avtaram, Rama Avtaram, Krishna Avtaram. So you can find a form. Suppose I say worship Rudra, and maybe you can worship Narsimha instead of Rudra. So like that you can adjust the devata based on your attachment, because in the end you have to feel some attachment to what you are doing. Then it will be more effective than just doing mechanically. And then some people ask me, should I do a small mantra, like there are all these 6 letter, 8 letter, 7 letter, 5 letter, 9 letter, 12 letter mantras, etc. And there are long prayers like Durga Saptasati, which is 700 verses. It takes a long time to chant. Vishnu Sahasranama Stotram, 100 Vishnu's 1000 name prayer. Lalita Sahasranama Stotram, Lalita's 1000 name prayer. These are really long. They take like 20 minutes or couple of hours and so on. So should you do long prayers or short prayers? The thing is, there's no thumb rule here. There's no one size fits all here. Different people have different attitude and aptitude. Some people have a good level of focus. So for those people, probably doing a short mantra, close your eyes, keep your back, neck and head straight, and then try to meditate with that mantra with a focus. Then maybe it is more effective for you. Somebody else may not have good focus. So if he does a short mantra for, let's say, 10 minutes or 15 minutes, he may lose focus and his mind may wander here and there. Whereas if he reads something that takes 20 minutes, suppose he is chanting Lalita Sahasranama Stotram, Lalita Devi's 1,000 name prayer, he has to look at the text and his mind has to pay some attention to it. So there is an anchor to the mind. So as a result, mind will be less distracted. So for such people, maybe long prayers are better. So depending on what you can do better, you pick the right prayer for you. And there are various mantras you can pick. Again, any mantra, if there is a specific mantra or prayer that you have attachment to that makes you feel nice, you can do that. And one more thing is, people put counts and durations. People put a particular count. Let's say I want to do 108 times this mantra, or 1000 times, or 5 malas, or I want to do for 15 minutes or 30 minutes, have a duration as a target. What says doing with a feeling? If you enjoy what you are doing and do it with a feeling, it is more effective. Because, just to give an analogy, I know I have given it in the past, but I never get tired of giving this analogy. Suppose you want to say I love you to your mother or father or wife or husband or children. If you say I love you, it is more effective than saying I love you, 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 I love you. Because it's not, there's no feeling there. So it is very important to do whatever you are doing with some feeling. At the same time, I want to say a couple of words on doing with enjoyment and doing mechanically. Because even things that we learn to enjoy later don't come with enjoyment in the beginning. In the beginning, you have to force yourself a little bit. So it is okay to do mechanically, but the thing is, eventually, as you do it more, some enjoyment has to come. Otherwise, you are probably doing the wrong thing. So you have to strike a balance between forcing yourself and enjoying what you are doing. In terms of yogic concepts of Ida Nadi and Pingal Nadi, Pingal Nadi is basically the force of sun. It stands for forcing things. It is the push instinct. And Chandanadi, Ida Nadi is controlled by moon, and it is for enjoying things. It is for pull back, relax. So one gives, one burns you out, one basically nourishes you. But you have to find a balance between them. If it is just always enjoying, it doesn't work. If you are always pushing yourself, it doesn't work. You have to find a balance. Push yourself to do some sadhana, but after a while you have to start enjoying it. And if you are enjoying it too much, maybe you have to push yourself a little bit more and do maybe a little longer or things like that. So you have to always find the right balance between push and pull back, between enjoyment and doing something mechanically. So that is the other perspective when I say that doing with feeling is important. So because you are not getting feeling, don't stop doing altogether. And people ask, can pujas and japas and homas help avoid karmas? They can sometimes burn karmas, especially homa, the fire ritual, can burn your karmas according to shastras. So sadhana can burn your karmas, but more often than not, you may not be burning your karma, you may not be doing enough sadhana to burn your karma. But the thing is, at least you can postpone the fruits of your karmas, postpone the fruits of undesirable karmas, and prepone the fruits of desirable karmas. So that is the other benefit from doing sadhana. And another benefit is, at least, even if you have to face the result of some bad karma you have done and go through suffering, you can do it with a calm mind. You can do it in a state of mind where you can accept what is coming to you as a result of your own previous karmas in the past with a more equanimous mind, and don't commit new bad karmas. Typically what happens is, when somebody is doing something bad to you, he or she is an instrument delivering the fruits of your own karmas to you. And of course, if they identify with that and if they take pleasure in what they are doing, that becomes a new karma for them, and they have to face music for it later. But that is their headache. As far as we are concerned, they are delivering us the fruits of our karmas. So they are just instruments, and we don't have to hate them, or we don't have to engage in fights with them. We can accept it and move on. But the thing is, we typically don't do that. We hate them. So at least mentally and sometimes even physically, we engage in new bad karmas with those people. So that becomes a new karma for us. So the vicious cycle of karma and karma phala keeps on, the wheels keep turning. So at least doing sadhana, even if your karmas are not burnt, even if your bad karmas are not postponed, you at least are in a state of mind where you are not doing new bad karma. So at least that is the benefit. So there are layers of benefits from doing spiritual sadhana. Now let us go through various rasis. For Mesha Rasi people, I mentioned which nakshatras earlier, so you can refer to the previous section. For Mesha Rasi or Aries people, if you look at various planets, one planet that really stands out positively is Saturn between April 12 and July 30, as well as between after January 6 next year. He's in the 11th house of gains. So he can give you financial gains, and to maximize, and particularly this window is conducive because he's a silver form. Planets who are Swarnamurti or golden form give results with little propitiation. Without much propitiation also they give good results. They are very eager to give good results. Planets who are Rajatamurtis or silver form, silver idol, they give result with some propitiation. And planets who are copper or Kansyamurti, they give, or Tamramurti, they give results with lot of effort. They are less inclined to give results. And planets who are iron form or Lohamurti, they are not inclined to give the results. So lot of propitiation is required. So in this period, little propitiation is enough, and after January 6, a lot of propitiation is needed, but financial gains are possible. So you can take advantage of that. And if there are any slowdowns in career you are experiencing in this period, July 30 to January 6, it may be because of Saturn in the 10th house. So propitiating Saturn is good. So for all these things, I suggest worshipping Venkateshwara, Balaji, for Saturn, particularly on Saturdays. And if you are experiencing any health problems, it may be because of Rahu as a Lohamurti, as an iron form in the first house of health and well-being. So worshipping Durga is very auspicious. And if you are experiencing any relationship problems or business problems or relationship with spouse or other people, that may be because of Ketu in the 7th house of relationship as a iron form. So worshipping Ganesha or doing a Ganapati Homam can be really beneficial for you. For Vrishabha Rasi or Taurus people, one thing that really stands out is Guru, Jupiter is in the 11th house of financial gains as a Rajatamurti, as a silver form. So even without much propitiation, he will give you some financial gains during this year. But to maximize that, you can worship Sadasiva or Dakshinamurti or Sai Baba or any Guru form, or you can just serve your Gurus. And if you are experiencing any slowdown in career during April 12 to July 30 or after January 6, it may be because Saturn is in the 10th house of career. So if there is any slowdown in career, worship Venkateshwara. And another good planet for them apart from Guru is Ketu. He is in the Ketu is in the 6th house of vanquishing enemies. So that is a really good transit, and he is also golden form, Swarnamurti. So it is very good. If you just want to maximize it, you can worship Ganesha. So worshipping Ganesha will help you overcome obstacles, overcome your various enemies, and improve your health, overcome health problems, etc. So this is another good thing apart from Sadasiva or Dakshinamurti or Dattatreya also for Guru, by the way. For Mithuna Rasi people or Gemini moon sign people, Guru is in the 10th house. Guru in the 10th house is not good for career. So it is a good idea to keep quiet and maintain a low profile at work during this time. If you maintain a high profile, people may think that, oh, he's being too smart, he's being a wise ass, and it may not go well for you. So maintain a low profile at work, and if there are any problems because of limelight at work that is causing problems with your superiors, you can worship Brihaspati himself, or you can worship Sadasiva or Dattatreya. And if you, particularly this period, July 30 to January 6, Saturn will be in the 8th house. Ashtamaseni is very problematic, and he is a copper form also. He is a Tamramurti. So it is particularly problematic. So if you are experiencing any health problems or anxieties that you cannot explain, if you are worried about things, if there are health problems, etc., it is a good idea to either do Rudra Chamakam, worship Rudra, or Mrutyunjay Mantra, or Hanuman Chalisa. Hanuman is Ekadash Rudra Swarupa. He is the equivalent of 11 Rudras. So you can worship Hanuman, particularly Hanuman Chalisa is good, Hanuman or Rudra or Mrutyunjay Mantra. And one really good planet for them is Rahu in the 11th house, but as a copper form. So some propitiation is needed. So worshipping Durga can give financial gains during the year. And if there are any problems relating to children or relationship with children, or children are struggling in life or in career or in studies, etc., that may be because of Ketu in the 5th house of children. So worshipping Ganesha or doing a Ganapati Homa can be beneficial. For Karkarasi or Cancer people, one thing that's really good is Guru is in 9th house. That is really good for Bhagyodayam, the blooming of the fortune. But unfortunately, he is an iron form. He is a Lohamurti. He is unwilling to give results. So, to make him give the results, you have to really do a lot of sadhana. And it is really a good idea to worship Dattatreya or Sadasiva or Dakshinamurti. Or those who believe in Sai Baba, they can worship Sai Baba also. So this is basically any Guru form. So this is a really good opportunity. So take advantage of that. If you are a Karkarasi person, make sure that you benefit from this. So, and from April 12 to July 30 and also after January 6, you have Ashtama Shani. And particularly after January 6 is an iron form, Lohamurti, particularly bad. So it is really, really important to do Hanuman Chalisa regularly on Saturdays and Tuesdays or every day. It doesn't take a lot of time. So chant Hanuman Chalisa or worship Hanuman with any Hanuman mantra, Hanuman mantra, or worship Rudra with Rudra Chamakam. Or see, if you can't chant long prayers like Rudra Chamakam, especially those that require a particular intonation, you can just say Om Rudraya Namaha, so is sufficient. Just meditate with that. And Mrutyunjay mantra is also good. And like I said, Hanuman is equivalent to Rudra. And if there is any slowdown in career, it may be because of Rahu in the 10th house of career, and Durga worship can be good for career. And if there is any lack of peace of mind, you feel like you are lost, you don't know what you are doing in life, and there is no peace of mind, it may be because of Ketu in the 4th house. Ketu recently moved to 4th house. So if you experience it in the next few months, maybe you can worship Ganesha. For Simha Rasi people, Leo, moon sign, Jupiter is in the 8th house, so if you are experiencing any health problems, it may be because of Guru in the 8th house. If Guru is a bad planet in your own natal chart, that is more likely. So for that, worship Shiva. And if there are any relationship problems in these two periods, it may be because of Saturn in the 7th house. So to improve your relationship during this period, you can worship Venkateshwara. And Saturn is in the 6th house between July 30 to January 6. So this is a window of opportunity. This is a period to overcome health problems, get in good health, overcome various enemies and obstacles that you've been experiencing in your projects. So this is a really good period, and he's also golden form. So this is a window of opportunity. To maximize it, you can worship Venkateshwara or Balaji or Srinivasa, particularly on Saturdays. And if there are any problems being faced by your father or your gurus, etc., people who are shown by the 9th house, it may be because of Rahu in the 9th house. So for that, for their well-being, worshipping Durga can be good. And finally, one planet that is really good for you is Ketu in the 3rd house as an iron form. So that can give you initiative. Things that you've been thinking of but have been lazy to actually do. This is a next year and a half or good opportunity to actually make them happen. So to take off, for new projects to take off, for initiative, for energy, etc., worship Ganesha. For Kanya Raashi or Virgo people, Jupiter is in the 7th house. That is good. So improve your relationship further. Relationships will be good, but to improve them further, you can worship Shiva, Parvati and Shiva. And before July 30 as well as after January 6, Saturn will be in the 6th house, but he will be iron form or copper form. So worshipping Venkateshwara can help you achieve good health and overcome obstacles and enemies, etc., and have material success. So Venkateshwara or Balaji is really good. And if there are any problems relating to your children in the second half of this year, if children are struggling, it may be because of Saturn in the 5th house of children. So for that, worshipping Venkateshwara is a good idea. Then Rahu is in the 8th house. That is a really bad transit. Ashtam Rahu can give health problems, accidents, anxieties and tensions, and it's like mind feeling like twisted metal. All that can happen with Rahu in the 8th house. And if you are experiencing any of such things, by the way, like I said earlier, these are all generic readings. Your own horoscope, your own annual charts, your own dasas, all those will change everything. So not everybody with this moon sign may experience this. But if you are seeing any ill health or anxiety, etc., it may be because of Rahu. So he's a Tamramurti also, so you have to worship. So worshipping Durga, either Durga Saptasiti, Saptasiti is 700 verses, Saptasloki is 7 verses. So those two are really good. Otherwise, you can just do a simple mantra like Om Dum Durgaya Namaha or Om Hrim Dum Durgaya Namaha. So you can worship Durga. That can give you some sanity, mental sanity. And if there are any financial problems, wealth problems, etc., it may be because of Ketu in the 2nd house of wealth, and Ganesha can help with wealth issues. Thula or Libra moon sign people, one thing that stands out is in the second half of the year, Saturn will be in the 4th house of Sukha. So he will deprive you of Sukha, of comfort and peace. So if you are experiencing any lack of peace and not feeling comfortable in life, feeling like you are lost, you don't have a direction, it may be because of Shani in the 4th house. So for that, worshipping Hanuman is really, Hanuman or Rudra is very beneficial. And if there are any problems faced by your children during the year, particularly before July 30 or after January 6, it may be because of Saturn in the 5th house of children. So worshipping Venkateshwara can be helpful to relieve the pressure for your children. Any relationship problems may be because of Rahu in the 7th house of relationships. So Durga can help with the relationships. And any health problems. If you are experiencing any health problems, health is on and off, it may be because of Janma Ketu in the first house. So Ganesha can give you good health. Vrishika Rasi people, for them Guru is in the 5th house. Unfortunately, he is an iron form, but this is a really good transit. So for getting children, or if you already have children, for the well-being and welfare of children, for children to do well in life, and also for getting fame or recognition in some circles around you, getting promotions, etc. This is a really good year. So to take full advantage of that, I suggest worshipping Sadasiva or Dakshinamurti or Dattatreya. And before July 30 or after January 6, Saturn will be in the 4th house. So if you are experiencing any lack of comfort, peace, etc., it may be because of Saturn. So I suggest worshipping Rudra or Hanuman. And in the second half of the year, Saturn will be a Tamramurti, a copper form in the 3rd house. So that is really good for your projects taking off, having initiative, and for productive changes in life. And if you want to amplify that, you can worship Venkateshwara. And one really good transit for you is Rahu is in the 6th house as a silver form. So even without propitiation, some amount of achieving health and overcoming obstacles and enemies is possible. To maximize that, you can worship Durga for overcoming obstacles and enemies and health problems that have been bothering you for a while. For Dhanu Rasi or Sagittarius people, Jupiter is in the 4th house. One thing that really stands out is Saturn is in the 3rd house before July 30 and after January 6. And after January 6 is a Tamramurti. So it is a very good idea to worship Venkateshwara. Lord Venkateshwara can be worshipped to... Another form you can worship for Saturn apart from Venkateshwara is Panduranga, if you are Vitthal. So that is another form you can worship. So that can give you initiative to and overcome your laziness and start making progress in things. And if your children are experiencing any problems in life, if any or you don't have a good relationship with children, it may be because of Rahu in the 5th house of children. So and he is iron form also, iron murti, lohamurti, iron idol. So it is a really good idea to worship Durga for the welfare of children during the year. And for financial gains, it is a good idea to worship Ganesha, because Ketu is in the 11th house of material gains and profits as an iron form. So worship of Ganesha can give you material gains. Makara Rasi or Capricorn people, for them 7.5 years of Saturn is going on. There will be a glimpse of the second leg. The first leg was going on for the last couple of years. There will be a glimpse of it between April 30 and April 12 and July 30, but he will go back to Janma Rasi and he will go back to the 2nd house. But luckily he is a golden form. So after January 6, things can be a little better. Still you are running 7.5 years of Saturn, the so-called Sade Sati or Elnad Shani or El Rata. So it is still going on, but it will be somewhat better compared to the last 2.5 years. After January 6, things will be somewhat better. But still, because there is a Saturnine trouble, I strongly recommend doing Mrutyunjay mantra. Chant Mrutyunjay mantra or Hanuman Chalisa or Rudra Chamakam or any prayer of Rudra. That is really, really recommended for Makara Rasi people. And if there is any problems being faced by your mother, or you don't have a good sense of comfort or peace in life, you lack peace, it may be because of Rahu in the 4th house of mother and peace. So I suggest worshipping Durga. And if there is any slowdown in career in the coming months, because Rahu and Ketu recently moved signs, Ketu is in the 10th house of career. So if there is any slowdown in career, it may be because of Ketu in the 10th house of career. So worshipping Ganesha can be good for career for Makara Rasi people. For Kumbha Rasi people, Rahu is in the 2nd house of wealth as a Rajatamurti, as a silver form. Sorry, not Rahu, Guru. Guru is in the 2nd house of wealth as a Rajatamurti, and Rahu is in the 3rd house of initiative and making progress with things. as a Rajamurti again. So this is Rahu and Guru are really favorable. So worshipping Durga can give you initiative and things can start happening. Things that have been bogged down for a while, you can start making progress in those projects if you worship Durga. And if you worship Venkateshwara, if you worship Sadasiva or Jagannatha or Dattatreya, you can basically, it can be beneficial from wealth point of view. You can accumulate wealth during the year. And if your father is experiencing problems, father or Guru is experiencing problems, it may be because of Ketu in the 9th house of Guru and father. So it is good to worship Ganesha for that, Ganapati. And the 7.5 years of Saturn is about 1/3 done. There will be a glimpse of the second phase, second leg in this period. But the thing is, when he goes back on January 6th, he'll be a silver form. So again, compared to the last 2.5 years, after January 6th, things can be a little better. But still, it is a good idea to worship Mrityunjaya or Rudra or Hanuman, just like the Makara Rasi people. For Meena Rasi people, Ketu in the 8th house can give health problems, anxieties, accidents, and health problems that are difficult to diagnose, etc. If any of such things are happening to you, worship Ganesha. Ganesha can help with Ashtama Ketu. And if there are any financial crunch being experienced, it may be because of Rahu in the 2nd house of finances. So worshipping Durga can relieve the financial pressures. And Saturn is the 7.5 years of Saturn is about to start from next January. There will be a glimpse of it for a couple of months this summer. But Saturn is golden form then. It's not that bad. But once he goes back there after January 6th, he'll be an iron form. So your 7.5 years of Saturn will start in full force next January. And first 1/3 is probably the worst. So just hang in there. Just hang in there. All good times and bad times come in sequences. So hang in there and get into the habit of worshipping Rudra or Hanuman or Mrityunjaya. It can really, if you start it now in this period, it can help you over the next 7.5 years and particularly next 2.5 years when Saturn is in the 12th house of losses as an iron form. But there is a window of opportunity from in the second half of the year, July 30 to January 6. He's in the 11th house of financial gains as a Swarnamurti, as a golden form, golden idol. So if you want some financial gains before your troubles start, you can worship Venkateshwara during that period. But I strongly recommend getting into the habit of worshipping Hanuman, Mrityunjaya or Rudra so that you have something going for you over the next 7.5 years. So these are basically some gross at a high level guidelines I can give based on some transits that stand out as particularly good or particularly bad for various rasis. Now, as a conclusion, I hope that you may find some peace and happiness in an increasingly turbulent world. I expect that this year will continue to be turbulent. Last year was a relatively stable year when the pandemic was coming under control and things were kind of under control. This is a turbulent year. It started with the things going on in Ukraine, and there may be more turbulence as we go on. So I hope that you can find some peace and happiness. The thing is, the world around you may be unstable, but you can, if you find your core and if you think of God and you have faith, unshakable faith that all that is happening for good for the world as well as yourself, and you basically have that faith even when really bad things are happening, that it will lead to something good in the end, something really good in the end. If you have that faith and you hang in there, it is possible to keep your peace, in inner peace. So I hope that all of you will find some inner peace and happiness in this world, and may the world move in the direction of dharmic and sustainable peace. And again, Happy New Year, Shubhakrit. And I will do my final prayer, that I do always at the end of my videos. People ask me what exactly I am saying, so I actually put it in text here. So you can also chant along. Om Tat Sat Sarvam Sri Krishnarpanamastu Loka Samasta Sukhino Bhavantu Sarve Jana Sukhino Bhavantu Yavad Bhumandale Sanatana Dharmo Vardhatu Visheshatah Bhartakhande Amerika Avashe Tibet Rashtre Cha Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Thank you very much and have a happy new year again. Happy Shubhakrut.